first or second grade, there was an eclipse. And the little dot on the paper wasn't working for me, so I just looked up and washed a little bit of it, and I wound up with a permanent burn.
You're joking.
And death is a weird equalizer, right? Like it's,
boy.
I guess it never occurred to me how final death is. There's a group of people in this world that are willing to give, and I would say volunteer firefighters, the ones I'm around. It's a really special group of people. I think the way that the chief says it is do good, be good, right?
Today I have a conversation with Brian Lambert. Brian and I got to know each other well because we worked together for years at Night Eyes in Boulder, Colorado. If you don't know Night Eyes, actually, I bet you do. Most people are surprised when they start looking around and realizing they have a lot of Night Eyes products. I was honored when Brian said yes to acting in a small role in our movie, A Colorado Road Trip. It's a fantastic movie. It's a Colorado-centric movie. There's a lot of Colorado tropes. Tropes like, I didn't actually realize that people from the mountains called people from the Front Range Flatlanders. Brian actually suggested that we use that line in the movie, and we did. In fact, I even made stickers. We got Flatlander stickers. If you want one of these, go to our shop on our website, joyrec.com, and I will mail one to you. On our website is where you can also purchase the movie and watch it. Once you sign up for the film, you'll have lifetime access to it. You'll get to enjoy it, and you'll get to know that you supported us, the artists who made the movie. Now, here's my conversation with Brian Lambert. From that period of time, he wasn't dating.
Right, which was a pretty fantastic story. I have a lot in common with him. I didn't date much either.
Really?
Yeah. I went to an all-boys school.
Oh, that's right. Was it a Catholic school?
Mm-hmm.
Where, it's crazy because the first question I want to ask you is, where did you grow up? Because I knew you grew up here in Colorado.
Yeah.
So it's an all-boys Catholic school in Denver?
In Denver, yeah. West Denver.
Okay.
It's Mullen, but I won't name the name.
Okay.
Because I don't like them. But you can ask me questions.
Did you have was your Catholic school experience good or bad? Because I know a lot of people who's not had a good experience.
I wouldn't say it was bad. I just wouldn't say it was great.
Yeah.
I mean, and due to myself, right? I didn't take advantage of the things that were given to me. When a silver spoon is jammed into your mouth, sometimes you gag and spit it back out. You know what I mean?
Really? You think it was a silver spoon opportunity?
That my parents would pay for a college prep high school, for me to do better and go to college. And then I joined the Navy the day after graduation.
Were they disappointed in that?
Hell yeah, I enlisted.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, were your parents that well off? I mean,
no, they're middle class. We assumed they were well off, but we didn't wear name brand jeans. I wore. You can ask these questions too. I don't mind, but we wore our gang jeans, which is our gang, the Little Rascals. So mine would be and I remember getting my first pair of Levi's that I bought, and it was one of the most exciting days of my life. And I wore 501s from then on.
You
couldn't put me in anything else.
You're freaking joking.
No.
So it isn't that they were well off per se, but they put the extra effort. They put the resources in and said, we're going to take this and not use it for something else. We're going to put our kids in. How many kids are we talking? Three?
Yeah. Two of us went to, my little brother thanks me all the time for
breaking the rules.
Yeah. So
You're the oldest?
I'm the middle. So my older brother, I had to follow him through high school, which he was just an excellent student.
Yeah.
And then I'd go into class to the same teachers, and I remember certain teachers oh, you're Lester's brother. Yeah, you should do great in this. And then when I'm getting C's and D's, they're just kind of shocked.
Because he was what, A's and B's?
He was A's,
Really?
A's and A pluses, in advanced classes too. And I was I was barely scratching the, and I didn't. I probably could have done better, but I didn't.
Why did you go to the Navy?
My dad was in the Navy. I'd heard a lot about his, he talked about it a lot. My uncle was a Vietnam vet, so it was just interesting to me. I really wanted to be a Navy SEAL. I probably saw Top Gun and was that's the one for me.
Yeah.
How it randomly worked out is my best friend in high school was going to go join the Marines.
Yeah.
And he's like, hey, will you drive me to the recruiter? I was like, sure, we'll go after school today. So he was going down and talking to the recruiter, and there was a Navy recruiter next door, and I wound up joining the Navy.
Wow.
Yeah, so it wasn't like, I don't know that it was a planned event. It was like I wasn't really getting into the colleges I wanted to get into.
Yeah.
So I think I'd gotten into UNC and like Western State College.
Yeah.
And those just weren't appealing to me. So
when you got into the Navy, was it in your mind, if you can remember back, were you like, yes, this is the direction? Or was part of you like, I don't know where this is going to shake out, but...
No, I was pretty into it. Like I was very into it. So like, and I think that's kind of how I am, is if I'm going to do something. I remember marching to breakfast one morning and just having a big smile on my face, because I was like, if my friends could see me now, man, like looking like this in the dungarees and, all set up. So I was pretty proud of it. I think that was a pretty cool thing. But, once you get back into civilian life, it's a lot different. Like it just, and I was in the reserves. So, listen, no stolen valor here. I was just a reservist and did my training. I got recalled for Persian Gulf, but we went through our initial training to be shipped over to Iraq, and then the war ended. So I came home. But it was
this is Desert Storm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I really wanted to be a Navy SEAL. And when I was first or second grade, there was an eclipse, and the little dot on the paper wasn't working for me, so I just looked up and watched a little bit of it, and I wound up with a permanent burn.
You're joking.
And I could shoot. I was an amazing shot, but like I was amazing shot because I just aimed for the blank spot.
You're freaking joking.
So like when I got through the physical part of the Navy SEAL training, once you go to boot camp, they separate you out if you want to be something like that. And I had made it pretty clear when I joined that's what I wanted to be. And they wound up, I went through all the physical part of it, and then you have to go through like the physical, like the actual physical, right? They check your, blood pressures and all that stuff. And in the eye test, I failed the eye test.
You are joking.
So like it was, you can either do this or, you're going to be a bosun's mate, which is basically like, I wouldn't say the janitors. I don't want to. It's not a trade, if you will. It's not the trade I wanted to have. Okay. So.
So hold on a second. You're telling me that when this is 15 years down the line from whenever you looked at this eclipse in Damaged Rise.
I'm President Trump incarnate, man. I'll look up at the sun. It was a dumb thing, right? Like I'm a poster child for not doing stuff. Right.
So is it still affect you?
Yeah, there's still a little bit of a dark spot, but it heals.
You are joking.
A little bit of it healed over time. Eye doctors will see it, but they don't see it as prominent as they did when I was 18.
Wow.
So the eye is an amazing thing. I don't know if you know like how amazing the eye is, but like I once stabbed myself. I was putting a Christmas tree into a box and I pulled it up and stabbed myself in the eye, and I was like, and blood, and I was freaked out. I was like, I thought I was going blind. Blood? They didn't even give me like at the hospital, they didn't give me like painkillers. They're like, oh yeah, just keep your eye closed for a couple days. This will heal right back up. And like must not have been that bad. I thought I had lost my vision forever. And yeah.
You're freaking joking.
So I know the eye heal very, very, very well. My brother took a digger while he was jogging and his eye got detached. And
took a digger?
He fell.
Okay.
Yeah, he was running along, he fell down, and he didn't notice it. He had hit his head or something like that, and his eye wound up getting detached. And they wound up having to reattach it and do all this surgery, and now his vision is better than it was when he was in high school.
You're freaking joking.
No, and he's like, if I had known that this,
wow.
Not that you want to go through that kind of thing, but but it's not a good thing to look at an eclipse, turns out. They give you those glasses, and they didn't have those glasses when we were kids, right? It was you're looking at this sheet of paper with a pinhole on it, and you're watching this thing happen. Yeah. And I just thought, I can take this, I couldn't.
Oh, that's wild.
So,
That's wild.
Yeah. So I'll embarrass myself throughout this conversation, I'm sure.
One of the things I wanted to chat with you about is like, of all the people that I know, you, similar to me, but you're on the next level, have lived a very very rich and eventful life. I would say somewhat by choice.
I would agree.
I wouldn't say you were like, oh, I'm going to choose to do this. I'm going to say that you have this sort of personality or outlook on life to like go, oh, I want to go do that.
Yeah, life is about experiences. Like, it's one of the reasons I did this thing with you, right? Like, it's not like I have aspirations to be an actor of any kind, but how cool is it to be asked to be an actor in a movie, like a real movie?
Yeah.
And that's a pretty cool experience, right?
Where do you think your, this sort of, I don't know, like enthrallment in life, where does it come from? Like, you see that you
pretty
have
adventurous. Yeah, I've always been pretty adventurous. You know, like my cousins lived in Breckenridge when we were young, so I spent a lot of time. Like, we would switch kids, right? One of the cousins would come down and stay at the house. I would go up and stay in Breckenridge, and they had a three-wheeler, and we'd play the Dukes of Hazards. They had a snowmobile, so like me and my cousin and me and a couple cousins would go around and cause trouble, right? We'd just like zip around the mountains. We were just out of control. We'd buy rafts at Target, and we'd raft the Blue River until the thing blew up, and then we'd walk back home. So like I've always I've had a stupid, I don't know that I have a lot of fear for things. I think I have some common sense. I'd like to believe I do. But I'm not really afraid of a whole lot of things. I'll try something if my mom used to joke that, like, for some people you say, if your friend jumped off the bridge, would you too? It's like, can we stop Brian from jumping off the bridge, before everybody else sees him do it, right? So like I would just take those types of risks that aren't always that smart, but were fun,
So when you joined the Navy, you were like, this is where I'm supposed to be right now.
At the time, I was definitely that way.
In hindsight, do you still feel like that was a great choice to make?
Absolutely, yeah. I think it changed my perspective in some good ways. I wouldn't say that when I got out I was a model citizen. I would say that I was probably more cocky than I'd ever been, because I worked out like a fiend when I was in the Navy. Like, I was pretty chiseled when I got out. I was pretty confident in myself. I was also, I think I was a pretty angry young man. So I'd get in a lot of fights.
Really?
Yeah, I was always looking for a fight.
Like in a bar?
Or like in a bar, or like in a, in a lot of, I just had a lot of angst. And I think I played rugby. I started playing rugby when I got out of the Navy. A buddy of mine, my roommate before I joined the Navy, was playing rugby when I got out. And he's like, you show up and do this. And I was like, all right, I will. And it's just like controlled mayhem. It's a really...
Correct.
It's the most amazing sport, like, hands down, in my opinion.
I feel like it's one of the most dangerous sports.
Not at all.
Really?
I think it looks that way, but I think rugby players are really smart, right? Like, football players will hit you with your head, right?
There we go. Okay.
Rugby players don't have a helmet, so I'm not going to go driving in there with my head.
Yes.
So there's certain things you learn how to tackle correctly, you learn how to do things correctly, and like, it's a great way to get a lot of aggression out. And so I played rugby, and I think that throughout my time playing rugby, I don't think I would have graduated college if I hadn't have played rugby. It really calmed me down.
So you get out of the Navy, then you go to college.
I got out of the Navy and I goofed around a little bit, and then I went to...
As you do when you're what, 24 years old?
20. I was just in the reserve. So I did about you could just go in, you do your boot camp, you get your training, and then you come back home. So when I came back home, I was going to join back up. I was pretty into it. But then, started having fun with my friends again, and then just did the reserve life, which is 1 weekend a month and 2 weeks in the summer.
Got it.
Which isn't, today as an older person, that sounds like a dream, right? That's all I have to do. But as a 20-year-old, you're like, well, I want to do this, or there's a fraternity party this weekend on my drill weekend. So what I'll do is drink all night and then show up to reserves in the morning, and that kind of stuff isn't the best way to do things.
So you were in the reserve while you were going to college?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And
I was in the reserves till '95.
You were playing rugby in college.
I played rugby in college, yeah. So I played for a men's club at first when I got out, which is who my buddy was playing
league.
for. Yeah, the Denver Barbarians, which at the time is and still is a pretty competitive team. Yeah. And they needed other people to play besides their A team, so they let us come in and play. And every once in a while I get in on an A game. Most of the time I played B or C side. Yeah. But it was just so much fun, and you'd see these, 40-year-old people playing rugby. You're like, God, man, the old boys, this sounds awesome. I'd love to play this forever. Turns out I can't because my body didn't make it that long. But it was a really cool sport. Yeah. And I'd play it today if I hadn't have broken myself up so much.
Yeah. I know a few people that who played rugby in college or whatever, and it's like there's a certain.
It's a sport of kings, man. It was so much fun, and I don't mean it. Women play it too, and the women that play. I don't know if you saw the Olympics, but watching the women in the Olympics was just amazing. I used to not be able to watch it because I wanted to play so bad, but now just watching it and watch how people play, it's fantastic. Yeah. It's just a great sport, and it's not boring. Like football has a commercial or a pause between each play, right? Or whatever's going on. You got to wait for things to happen. In rugby, it's like, unless that ball's going out of bounds or there's a penalty, they're playing.
I can be honest with you, I don't think I've seen one rugby game ever.
Oh, we're going. We used to have a pro team here called the Raptors in Colorado, and now they're not pro anymore. But there's a pro league out there, so you get to see some real high quality rugby.
Interesting.
And I was never at that level. I aspired to be, but never was. Yeah. But it's just a great sport.
Wow. Worst injury? Like what were the types of things that got you to the point where you're like, I got to stop doing this?
Oh, I wouldn't have stopped. It was a back injury but it was in a car accident, not a. I don't know if it was a car. A car accident kind of finished it off. I was whitewater rafting. It was really cold and I was tense all day. I went home and I did some landscaping and I felt a pop. And then I went fly fishing later that day and I was standing in the water. I was like, I can't walk out. Like I was like waist deep in the lake and I was like, and I kind of inched my way out and I was like, oh my God, what is this? Yeah. And so once my back went out, and then that just progressively got worse and I wound up having to have like my back fused. So yeah. So that.
What was it that happened? Did you
I blew a disc. I blew one disc. I blew 2 discs, and then it progressively gets worse. And I would go in for the cortisone shots, or they did a discectomy where they cut part of it out so that it wasn't pressuring the nerves. And then eventually that just didn't last.
Oh man.
Yeah, you know what? That's life.
Yeah.
I mean, quite honestly, after the surgery, it took a good year or so, but I'm at like 90% of where I was. I mean, I'm doing things now. Like I mountain bike a lot.
It's like it never happened.
No, it happened. I feel it. Like I think when you're in pain, ask anybody who's had a back problem. They're always in pain. It's just their level of tolerance. And I'm not a person who likes. I don't like to take aspirin. I don't like to take. If I have to take something to solve that problem, it's just not going to work for me. So. For me, I had this really cool opportunity at this company I was working for. A couple of my coworkers were doing the Leadville 100, which is a bike race a mountain bike race up in Leadville.
Explain what the race is.
The race,
just so we know.
It's a mountain bike race. It starts in Leadville. Yes. It goes 50 miles out, up a pass, and then you come back. So the year before I had done it, Lance Armstrong won it. And I think it's, if he sees it, he'd kill me. Levi Lippenheimer, I think his name is, or the one at the year I rode it. But like I was into mountain biking. My coworkers were like avid mountain bikers. They were really good bikers. Yeah. And they asked me if I wanted to, go spin class and stuff with them. And then finally they're like, hey, we're doing this Leadville 100. You should enter it. Yeah. Or you at the time you would enter a lottery and then you would get drawn. Yeah. But it turns out they had an in. So like if I registered for it, I would get selected. I was like, well, I'm going to do it. And so I did, and it was great. Like I trained like a madman. I finished it in just under the time. You get a belt buckle at 9 hours if you finish it in 9.
Whoa.
And then if you don't finish it by 12 hours, you can't finish.
Whoa.
and I think I may be getting this wrong, but then there's a bigger belt buckle if you finish it under a certain number. It might be 9 hours for the bigger belt buckle.
Okay.
And then if you finish it in under 12 hours, you get the little belt buckle. And so
But you still take it.
I still got the little belt buckle.
So you got the little belt buckle.
Yeah, and I was pretty proud of that.
Damn.
You know, it was a good experience, but it was a tough experience.
Oh, yeah.
I tried the next 2 years. I swore I could do better each other year, but I never got into the lottery, or I never got selected out of the lottery.
It's very hard as a flatlander myself, coming from Chicago, to really understand how rigorous the mountains could be when you're trying to do any physical activity.
Yeah.
Like you just don't have the perception or the experience of like, if you need to walk uphill for a mile,
Yeah.
like you get a little bit in. I mean, it is 4 times harder than walking on flat land.
Yeah, riding at elevation, I mean, you hallucinate a little bit. Like it's because it's riding a bike for 12 hours is a long time to begin with, but riding it at elevation up and down hills. I mean, the guy that throws it says like, you never know how deep you can dig until you do something like this.
Yes.
And that was kind of a game changer for me because I honestly didn't think I was finishing. I was coming down, there was only a couple hours left before like you get called off. They shoot this old school
Flare gun?
No, it's a
flare
rifle. They do like a black powder gun to finish it off right when the 12 hours is done.
Yeah.
But I hope I'm not getting, this was almost 20 years ago now. 14 years ago I did this. They fire this gun, and I remember getting to 2 points in the race where somebody's like, you're not going to finish, man. And that was the midpoint where like half the people were giving up. They were all laying on the side of the mountain. You go up to this, you go up to this mine.
What's the highest elevation?
I want to say 13,000, but I'm not positive. We'd have to look that up. Yeah, okay. I could be making this up. It was like 17,000 feet.
Okay, but it's not.
But you go pretty far up there, and when I got to the center point, there was a lot of people that had just given up. They were laying out, and they were kind of just laying there, and all I could think was, oh my God, I forgot my sunscreen, and how do I get down this mountain as fast as possible? And I was walking around asking a couple of people, they're like, hey man, just take your time, you're not gonna finish anyway, because it's too late.
Just enjoy it.
Yeah, and I was like, I think I'm gonna try. So I got down to the bottom. My buddy joked because on my way up, I was just happy-go-lucky Brian, really excited about it. It was at about 25 miles. I rode to the top and came back down. He's like, I've never seen like a change in an individual so much, because I was like dejected. Like I could barely see. I had to go to the bathroom. You're not allowed to get help from people. So like I had to fix my bike really quick. It was like a bunch of things going on.
Wow.
And at that point, they're like, you're probably not going to finish. And then I was like, I'm going to still try. And then there's one part where you're going up what's called the power line. I think it's called the power line. It's grueling. It was the worst part of the race.
Yeah.
When I did my training up there, it was the only part of the race I didn't train for because I just couldn't ride up it. I figured, I'll just go up half and I'll walk it. But on my way back, there was a woman next to me who was riding along with me. And we were just kind of riding at the same pace and going up this power line and riding along. And she's like, hey, I've got these baked beans sugar if you want some to get a little sugar rush. And I was almost offended anybody was offering me anything. I was like, no, I got this, and like we rode up and we wound up kind of keeping the same pace. And she's like, I don't think we're gonna make it. I was like, we're gonna make it, like we're gonna make this. And we got to the last hill and I cramped up so bad. Like I got to the last, there's a station, you check in at all these stations. I got to the last station and like I was, locked into my bike and I was sitting there and I just remember clunk and tipping over and I was like, I'm cramping. And the guy comes out and he has like a slice of watermelon. He pours like a pile of salt on it. And he's like, eat this now. Don't ask me a question. And I ate it. And all of a sudden I was like, oh my God, I think I can do this. And I wound up like just toughing it out. But you just dig really deep. And I think that this has always been my mentality is like, you can do this. Like you can do this. You got to trust in yourself and it's something that you can do. And that's kind of what's, those types of things I think changed from the aggression to the like, you can do it. Just take your time. Just make sure your preparation helps, right? It never is good to just show up to a 100-mile race without ever riding your bike, which I think a lot of people do. And I found that those types of things and the things I did before that got me to the finish line. And I was pretty proud, like my friends that I mountain bike with had never done that kind of thing. And I, even though I didn't do it in record time, I did it in the time it took
Still
to
got
get
the small belt.
I got the belt buckle, you know? But then my buddy was like, that's really cool, man. I'll buy mine on eBay next week. And I was like, oh, well, that kind of takes out I guess you could buy it on eBay.
Yeah, it's interesting to think about. It's interesting as I get older, as we all get older, thinking about like the phases that you go through in life.
Yeah.
And I often think guys especially are just dumb, or just they have this sort
I'm
of.
not going to argue that.
I shouldn't put it that way. It's more like, even though it's true.
Yeah.
But this like aggression that you're talking about, there's like men in their 20s just seem to be like just fueled.
Yeah.
And a lot of times they don't have a constructive way to like get the fuel out.
Right.
It's interesting to like think about when it is that your average guy, your average person, like if I had to look at my life and look at someone else and go, I know the trajectory that you're on.
Yeah.
At a certain point in your 30s or something like that, you start to like mellow out in a way that we could call maturity, I think. I don't know.
I think so. I think it's mature. I think people's expectations for you change too, right? Like when you're younger, I've never been driven by money, much to my wife's dismay. It's not like I'm not motivated by money, and I'm motivated by life experience. I'm motivated by being a part of something.
Yeah.
I think I'm more of a team player than a leader, right? I love being part of a team.
Yeah.
Like I'm not an individual that would, oh my gosh, I'm going to be president of this company. That doesn't appeal to me at all. That sounds like too much pressure. But what I would like to do is make that president of the company look like the best person, the smartest person, and make a lot of money, and thereby comes my way. And that works sometimes, then it doesn't work other times, right? But then you just move on and do other things. But I believe as I started to see that people's expectations for me changed, I started to change my expectations for myself.
Yeah, but part of that had to be you were changing as a person. It has to be a part of that.
I like to believe that. Yeah, I don't know that
I just feel like we end up with these experiences, and these experiences start to shape who we are.
Yeah.
I think the chemicals in our bodies, kind of go through their life cycle.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like it's interesting to see it's interesting to watch people develop in life.
Yeah.
And when I think back on my life, and maybe you think back on your life, I mean, there's like these chapters.
Most definitely. I've been a different person a lot of my life, right? I think there are some people that, I mean, to use an old analogy, like you get bucked off a horse, you get back on it, right? Yeah. But there's some people that get bucked off the horse, like, nope, never riding a horse again.
Yeah.
And that's not me. It's like, well, I got bucked off, but like either it's going to look really cool when I get bucked off the next time, or I'm not going to get bucked off. I don't know that I shy away from like defeat. I think defeat in some ways motivates me if I don't succeed in it. Yeah. And then on the opposite side, sometimes if I'm too successful, I'll do something to ruin that, if you will, right? I mean, I'll
Have you had times where you really were beat down?
Oh yeah.
Like what do we talk about here? You don't have to get into details, but like.
Well, I mean,
when you look back on your life, like when was a time when you were like, I was completely lost in the forest in this one?
I think a lot of times, like, my first year of college, I think like a lot of people, sometimes you walk into a room and you don't feel like you belong, right? You feel like a poser, and everybody sees that. And I think that a lot of, maybe it's just the way certain people feel, but you just don't feel like you belong. And so but you want to belong, or you want to prove to people that you belong. Yeah. And I think that that just can impact a lot of things. So college was tough for me because I didn't feel like I was smart enough. I didn't feel like I was, and I didn't want to study, I wanted to do, college? No, this is supposed to be fun, But then you find out your parents are paying, and that fell short, right? They stop paying when you're not doing well. And there was a lot of times, I think, in life where I probably pushed the limit I shouldn't have pushed. And, 5 or 6 years ago, I had something happened, and like I got really dizzy. It might be old age, but I was dizzy every day, and I had a really bad headache, and I was sitting here thinking, I'm not going to be able to do a lot of the stuff that I love to do. Like, I'm not. How do you ride a mountain bike or my motorcycle when you feel like this, when you're dizzy? And it was really important to me to take advantage of every day. And I think when I was younger, I was kind of that way. Like, every day's a gift. You want to make sure that you're taking full advantage of this gift, because tomorrow may be totally different. Things can happen really quick. I think as I got older, that window got shorter, right? Like then it was like, oh man, if you do that, like tomorrow may not be as easy as today. Yeah. And I started to think about that, right? Like on the mountain bike, or when I was snowboarding, there wasn't anything I wouldn't huck myself off of. If there's a big ledge, I can stick it, and I'd go off it. Well, today, on my mountain bike, if it looks like it's going to be rough, I'll take off, I'll walk over it, and then I'll get back on and ride, because it's about the journey and not the destination to me.
So to kind of harken back to a couple things that we covered, I knew this guy in Washington, D.C. who suffered from really chronic pain. And he looked at me one day, and again, I'm in my 20s, so I don't know anything. Yeah. I mean, I would take life for granted. I mean, you're supposed to be able to do this and be this successful. He looked at me one day and he said, you don't realize, no one ever thinks they're not in pain. It's not until they start feeling physical pain that they start going, oh, there's an opposite to being normal. Yes. He goes, now you can't stop thinking about it. He goes, but someone like you don't even think about how wonderful it is not to have pain. It's as if you take it for granted.
I think you can't. Yeah, I used to heal very well. And that's a young person, right? You break a bone, you heal. And as you get older, you don't heal as quickly. Yeah. Or you may not heal at all.
But this metaphor, it could be applied to physical, could also be applied to mental. You know what I mean? It's like, I would say it's often common for people, especially young people, to just take for granted how great things are going. Right? It's not until you experience some turbulence that then you're like, ooh, this is what it means to have a really good chapter in life.
Yeah.
I also wanted to mention this too. Try to keep this short, but the darkest period in my life was probably some years after my mom died when I was 16. Some years after. I was 23. And the world just seemed within a couple of years, from 22, 23, just seemed to crumble. In every direction I looked was just what felt like darkness. Yeah. And I started seeing a cognitive behavioral therapist then because I had to. I mean, legitimately had to. And what happened was she had mentioned a few things that I often think of today. Things of like what life might end up being that you can't see through the darkness right now. And they ended up becoming very true. And I remember thinking when I was 29 or 30, I guess I was 30. I was 29, 30. I was unemployed due to the Great Recession. My architecture career was completely evaporated. And I was full into acting. And I was living off of unemployment. I had no financial responsibilities. I was not in any sort of committed anything. And I remember biking across Chicago on a summer day, going to an audition, and just going, my God, life is amazing. Yeah. And if I could have gone back to that 22-year-old version of myself and just be like, dude, it's gonna be fine. Yeah. Just get through this. In your life, you have no idea what will await you. The friends that I had at that time, female friends, the partnerships that I had, the relationships I was in, the community I was a part of, my life was amazing as an unemployed 30-year-old. And I just couldn't have seen that.
Yeah. Death is a weird equalizer, right? Like you were young when that happened, which is kind of interesting. When my mom passed away, I'm lucky enough to have, she had been in my life for long enough, and I probably today think I took some of that for granted. I guess it never occurred to me how final death is.
Yeah.
I've been to plenty of my grandparents' funerals, an uncle or an aunt here and there, but it never really occurred to me because they weren't around me all the time.
Yeah.
But then when my mom passed away, it was, that was a pretty dark time because I didn't understand why other people weren't as affected as I was, or that how final it was that she was just gone, right? And like that things that people do now, it was just tough. It was very tough. And I couldn't imagine doing that at a younger person. Maybe as an older person, I was able to get around that a little bit more because I had had more life experiences, but it's still like I was very troubled by the finality of that and how like I'd lost dogs, you just get another dog, right? Not that that's, it's terrible, but yeah, when you lose a parent or somebody close to you or somebody that's in your life like that level, it's incredibly impactful. And I had friends whose parents had died at younger ages, but it never really occurred.
You can't understand.
Even occurred to me how that could affect them and what they went through. And honestly, the power it takes to get through that as a young person, because you do, as an older person, I do have a little different vision. As a younger person, it's like, well then life doesn't have any meaning. And it's really the opposite that you should get out of it is, oh my God, does life have meaning? And every day could be, I've started a new career in my 50s that I never thought I could do. I mean, I'm happier now than I've ever been. Time just goes really fast for me because there's a joy in life that I just didn't have before because I was so working for a career or to make money. And again, money's important. You got to pay the bills. So I do like that part of it. So I try and find a job that caters to that. But there's just many more important things than just working for a living.
Damn it, Brian. Every conversation I have with you is a good conversation. Unbelievable. I got to hit one point. Then I want to piggyback off this idea. I remember at 16, at my mom's funeral, standing in line, everyone's coming in and you're greeting everyone.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing a kid my age whose parent died a few years, and it finally, I remember having the thought, I can still remember it today, oh my God, this is what he experienced.
Yeah.
And you cannot know what it's like on the other side of the line until you've crossed the line, period.
Yeah.
And I've often wondered, it doesn't matter at what age it happens at.
Yeah.
It's like when you get something cut that close to the bone, now you know.
Yeah.
You will never know until it happens. And when it happens, you will never go back to the other side of the line.
Yeah, amen. It's really, and then you got to try and be there for other people, right? Like you got to try and acknowledge that pain is very individual, whether it's mental or physical. I can't explain to somebody what my back pain is like. And I meet many people who have back pain that don't do the things that I do, but I'm not there to judge them because how you react to pain and how you deal with pain and what level of pain you're in, right? Like if it, doctors always ask on a scale of 1 to 10, what's your pain level, right? It's like, well, my pain level's a 2, but it's all day long. So it's like a 30, I feel this pain all the time and it could just be a numbing, but that numbing will affect people in different ways, right? I'm not gonna walk because I'm worried that it's gonna get worse, or I'm gonna go hardcore because I'm worried I'm never gonna do this again. And and then mine's somewhere in between of that. But pain in general, physical or mental, you cannot explain it to other people correctly. You just can't because they can't get it. It's my pain.
Part of the thing of living an eventful life is that you get all of these experiences that shape your knowledge and ability to empathize with other people.
Yes. I think it's important. I mean, and the older I get, I think it's even more important, right? To stop and ask if you're okay. When you see something. I don't do that all the time, but I try to do that a little bit more than I used to, because not everybody asks for help. And not everybody it's not as obvious on some people as it is on others.
Yeah.
I think most people would say about me that you can pretty much tell how I feel. If I'm in a good mood or a bad mood, I try not to be in a bad mood, or I try not to bring that around with me. But people can tell, and I wear it all right here. Yeah. Some people aren't that way. Like if they're in pain, they may just not be able to tell you, and they're just suffering, and it's tough. Yeah. And it's tough for them. It's not tough for you, and you have to empathize with that because you can't feel it, and you can't internalize it because you don't want to. You can't bring yourself down. That's not what people are looking for. Oh, I just want to commiserate with other people who are in pain. I don't think that's how people are. Yeah. I want somebody to help me understand how I can deal with this and get past this.
Yeah. I don't know, man. Some people look for meaning in life. Other people are living life. I wonder if that isn't where the adventurous spirit comes from. It's people going, I want to know what this is. I want to experience this. Yeah. I'm here. Maybe we're here for a reason. Maybe like I want to understand. You know what I mean? Other people are like, I'm going to sit on the couch Saturday night and watch a movie, and that's what I'm going to do every single Saturday night for a year.
Yeah, I don't know if there's anything wrong with that. I mean, if that's what makes you happy, right? Like it's finding your happiness. Some people just love watching movies, and that's what they want to do. Yeah. I think when you start to idolize, that might be a problem when you're idolizing or you're focusing on other people instead of yourself. We see a lot of that in social media, right? Where there's a lot of fakeness behind the reality, and it's unfortunate because honestly, that reality would be great, right? I'd love for that to be the case, but that's a moment in time, and that's your moment in time. Yeah. But I try to live my moment in time, and get the most out of it.
I feel like social media is having an impact on how people perceive the world at a great, great level.
Yeah, we get news very quickly now, right? Like growing up, we didn't, live the joy of having to look things up in an encyclopedia if I wanted to know the answer, or just believe the person that told me whatever, and move on. But the fact that you can find out anything about anything right now is good and bad. I wouldn't disparage social media because I think there's a lot of great things about it.
That's true.
I just think that some people aren't really. Some people probably aren't finding the joy in it that they should.
Yeah. All right. Change the topic. When you look forward in life, what are you most excited about?
I look forward to evolving my relationship with my wife. We've been together over 20 years, and I think it gets better every year. And we've moved to different places and done different things, so that's pretty fun for me. And I think that gives me excitement to continue to find new things to do and things that'll work for both of us. So find better ways to live, find better ways to do stuff, find more things that we can help with, whether it be rescuing animals or more environmentally ways to get rid of plastic or things like that. So, just finding ways to keep busy, I guess.
All right. I'm so sorry. I know I keep jumping around on topics here, but I remember this is what I wanted to touch on when I was like, I have no idea that you have any sort of back pain at all. I have no idea. I would never have picked up on that because you live such an active life. You take your motorcycle, the dirt bike to Moab pretty much every November.
I try to,
The volunteer fire department.
Yeah.
What's the deal?
I just started
to me about that because this is new, but this is kind of an epic, really physical thing.
It can be. I'm much like being in the reserves in the military. I'm just training at this point in time. I think the biggest fire I've put out is a campfire. So it's fun. It's something new to learn, to get to drive and work around fire trucks. Yeah. There's a group of people in this world that are willing to give. And I would say volunteer firefighters, the ones I'm around. I'm not going to qualify myself as that because I've only been doing this since April. Yeah. You got to put in some time. It's a really special group of people. Yeah. A group of people that are willing to, I think the way the chief says it is, do good, be good, right? Like, if you keep that in mind,
wow.
like it's not about getting somebody in trouble because they're doing something wrong or because, I've got an illegal campfire. It's really making sure that that person knows why that illegal campfire is really problematic.
Yeah.
So I think that there's a value that volunteers give that not only a value to themselves, as I've found some internal things that are really making me enjoy it more, as to be around these people that are just willing to do this kind of thing, right? For no pay at all. It's like the pay is really in the fulfillment of doing that, or getting to run a fire hose up the hill. How cool is that, right?
Yeah.
And getting to drive a fire truck. That's a pretty, it's a childhood dream for many young people, and it's a pretty cool thing to be able to do.
Yeah.
So a friend at work was going to go to an open house in the canyon I live in. And I was like, well, yeah, I'll stop by with you. And then I wound up just kind of continuing to go, and it's evolved to a little bit more. Now I'm, they sent me to Wildland Academy, so I got my Wildland certificate so that I could fight
what is that?
That's those guys in the yellow shirts and the green pants that you see out there fighting all the fires.
They sent you to it. Is it here in Colorado?
Yeah, it's here in Colorado. So they have academies around, and you can get your certification so that you can. It's called a red card, is what I got, which allows you to be a wildland firefighter, right? If there's a big fire, you could be dispatched to that fire and help out.
Okay.
So,
what did the training entail?
Mostly safety, to be honest with you. I mean, it doesn't take a lot.
Like how to keep yourself safe?
Yeah, safety, how to keep others safe, what to look for, how to read a fire, how to look for fire weather, what types of things would cause a fire, how fires got out of control, how people got in trouble when fighting a fire. All of those things are really drilled into you. And then how to use the equipment. So most of it's safety, and then you learn how. It doesn't take a lot to teach people how to dig a ditch. To dig a fire line, but there is a skill to that actually, and how you want that fire line, and how you don't want things rolling down the hill and keeping to roll. So it was a lot of that.
So what I'm curious about this, a fire line. I know in theory I know what it is. You dig an area in which the fire won't burn. I always thought about that, and I'm like, how could you possibly do that? It seems insane.
They do it.
All it takes is one tree to fall over. Now your fire line is nothing.
That's correct. Yeah, or the roots under, or you don't move the right patch, or you leave a duff, which is the top, which the pine needles and stuff that stack up. Those things can just smolder. So it's clearing that out so that you're down to the mineral earth, and there's nothing there to burn. Right? Fire doesn't burn rocks. Right. Fire doesn't burn dirt. You can't really. Fighting fires is a misnomer, because you're not fighting any fire. That fire is going to do what it wants to do.
Yeah.
You're just trying to change the trajectory of it so that it can burn out, or so that it doesn't take out things that are people, structures, all of those.
Ooh, so it might also be trying to redirect where the fire is going.
I wouldn't say redirect. It's more,
Is it
you
just
try and pinch it in. You're trying to put it out.
Right.
So once you pinch it, it'll burn itself out once you pinch it, right?
Yeah.
It can once you stop it, it's going to burn everything in between there. And then you go in there and do what's called mop up, and you find any hot spots and try and put that out. So you put it out. Yeah. It's really intense. And these guys are straight up underpaid heroes. These guys will go into the, I can't remember exactly what they get paid, but I think it's somewhere in the neighborhood of $17 an hour to go out there and
risk
save
their lives.
Yeah, and risk their lives. These guys, and they do it with a sense of joy and pride.
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing to watch these people. And again, I'm still early enough where I'm not there yet, but I hope to be there to help. I don't know that I would ever be enough to go out on dispatch and fight a fire in another state. Okay. But I definitely want to be there if something in our state or our area needs support. I want to be able to use the tools and the equipment to help put that out.
You were telling me you had some firefighting experience from younger days as well.
Yeah, in the military you do fire, in boot camp and stuff, you do firefighting. So we did our basic firefighting there, and then I did when I got out of the military, I got my red card back in '89. Yeah. So I had it, but
what's a red card?
Red card is your certification. They call it the red card. So you're a firefighter 2, I think. Okay. Which makes you basically a ground pounder. You go out there with your Pulaski or your McLeod or your shovel, and you clear stuff out of the way. So it's really grunt work, but it's incredibly fulfilling grunt work.
Yeah. I had, again, Flatlander, had no idea how intense a fire could be until I moved to the West.
Yeah, they're intense. And wilderness firefighters, you're doing it without water, right? Like, what are you going to do on the side of the mountain? Like, you carry about 45 pounds of water with you. They call it in a pack so that you can put things out, but that's not going to put out a fire. So you're really moving earth so you can stop it. Yeah. And they have people with chainsaws in there clearing the chainsaws, and then they have people with the chainsaw, people clearing the stuff that they cut down. So like they call those swampers, and then chainsaw folks. There's a whole series of people that go out and do this, and they're amazing people.
And they're not using like chainsaw. That would be a piece of equipment, but to clear the stuff, it's just
your hands. Yeah, these guys are. I mean, you have a Pulaski or a shovel.
What's a Pulaski?
Pulaski's like an axe head on one side and a hoe on the other side.
Yeah. Okay, gotcha.
Named after this dude named Pulaski that was a firefighter.
Polish guy?
I'm going to guess that. I don't know. Not here to...
When I hear Pulaski, I just think of Pulaski in Chicago. There's a main road that's Pulaski.
Oh, that's interesting. I forgot about that. Yeah, it might be the same guy. Who knows?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. Yeah, that's wild.
It's fun, but this is, I think, in the vein of, again, this movie and everything else it's like age is a good equal. Like, you get older, you get slower, you don't heal as fast, all these things. But that doesn't mean you can't do these things. Yeah. And I think for me, you don't age out of being a firefighter. You do, but really it comes down to, can you do the work? Can you do the work? Well, then you're welcome to help us. Can you not do the work? Well, then we'll find something else. Maybe you can do administrative. But there's a lot of different positions that you can help and volunteer and support those types of efforts that don't involve actually going out and fighting a fire. But
there's that saying of, like, the thing that I'm sensing the most about this is there's a saying that, like, you are the people you hang out with. And this seems like a pretty great group of people.
It's a pretty amazing group. I've learned a ton from them. Just not as much, yes, firefighting, but just as much as, appreciating your fellow neighbor. We're all so different, right? There's people in the canyon that I live in that live without power or water, right? And they, in cabins out there. And you would think, 20 miles outside of Boulder, that can't happen. That's a rich community, and it's absolutely happens, and it's more common than I thought. So it's just that it takes all kinds, right? Yeah. It really, and some of those guys are firefighters, and they're pretty excited about being a firefighter, right? And and they're just really cool people, and you can learn a lot. I'm a DIYer. I like to do things. I like to have projects to keep me busy. And this is one of those projects that's like, I keep learning something new every time I show up. Yeah. Whether it be how to put a femur, how to brace a femur if you've busted your femur, a femur stretcher, so that, help can show up. Yeah. But it's really like, if you roll onto something, I was coming home from a hike up at Brainerd Lake, I think up in Rocky Mountain National Park area, if you know where that is, above Ward. And I was just driving home and turned in a corner, and this poor woman had just gone down and was in serious pain, and like randomly I had all my stuff there. So like,
gone down, what happened to her?
Like she was riding her bike. There's a lot of bike accidents around there. And I was able to offer assistance, and it felt pretty darn good. Yeah. To have the confidence, I would have stopped anyway, but to have like some skill and to be able to talk to the firefighters as they're coming in the ambulance and make sure that this person feels at least comfortable that help is on the way was a pretty good feeling. I think the hardest part is that, I'm not going to get down there and do a medical assessment, or I'm not going to try and fix something, but it's good to know what not to do, right? Like not to move that person, don't give that person, make that person comfortable.
See, I hate to be completely incapable, but I know none of it.
You know a lot more than you think. Your gut's going to tell you what to do, right? So, like, don't touch that person. That looks like pain.
Me, Brittany, Wolfgang, and a few other people did Sanitas, and Sanitas Trail outside Sanitas Trail might as well be in Boulder, but it's right in the mountains, right outside of Boulder. Anyways, very popular, very popular. A lot of people just run that.
Yeah.
And we had gone up and down, we're in that kind of flat part, heading back to the parking lot. And a woman who was running it, I don't know what happened. She just collapsed, and was like, she was in some sort of shock or something. I can't remember. I think she was like, she couldn't even move. I don't think she was shaking or whatever. And all of us just started panicking.
Yeah.
We're like, this lady's dying.
Yeah.
And we start calling 911 and we're like freaking out.
But that's the right thing to do, right? You did the right thing right there.
They, within no time, a Ranger truck pulled up and this woman got out of this Ranger truck and calm as a cucumber. She was like, hello, how you doing, ma'am? Can you tell me your name? And we were all like, I mean, we were on the verge of frantic.
Yeah.
We're like, she's gonna die. And this lady was just she did and was like, I walked away from it going, oh yeah. Remain calm.
Yeah.
Just ask her what's going on. She was probably just having I have no idea what was happening to her.
Yeah.
I think she went into shock because her body was so exhausted.
Might have cramped up or something. Yeah, and things like that can happen.
She was so calm and cool.
Yeah.
Contrast that to us. We were like,
These people are amazing people.
They are amazing.
And you don't know until you know, right? You don't know until you need them.
Yeah.
I see ambulances going down the street all the time. I don't really think much about what they're doing, but now I think a lot about that, right?
Ooh,
that person is about to go probably save someone's life.
Yeah.
And how amazing is that job? And these people, they don't get paid a lot for it. It's not like you don't hear of people getting rich off of that. And it's maybe it's same with school teachers, and there's a lot of careers where school teachers saves lives. For anybody to be a middle school band leader. I remember how impactful that was being in band at a young person, but I, as an older person, was like, no way do I want to sit in front of these kids and hear that horrible music for an hour every day, or
have to be responsible for
Yeah, you really are, and it's pretty amazing. So I'm excited to be around those types of folk.
Yeah.
And it's exciting to just hear what they do too. So that if they do need help, like, hey, dude, go get the stretcher out of the ambulance, I can do that. I know where it is, right? But I ain't gonna go and lift anybody up for that matter. But who knows? Someday they may send me to get my EMT training, and years down the road I could get a EMT certification.
This is your part-time. This is volunteer. Like, you have a full-time job. You have a life filled with a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, it's nice and weekends.
Carving out the time to do this other thing.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, it's not. It doesn't take a ton of time, right? It's a couple training sessions a month, and usually one big one, a couple big ones a year.
Yeah.
I'm still in my first year, so I don't really know what's. I'm still a major observer, right? I just like to watch what people are doing and trying to mimic that right now, and trying to remember my training, right? Because I went through Wildland Academy in May, and I can't remember how wide the fire line should be. So you can bet after this, I'm going home to remember that, because somebody's going to ask me that, right? And there's people that take this very seriously. When I came in on that accident, I asked all the right questions. I think I helped this person out, at least assure this person that help was on the way. Yeah. But when help did arrive, that person was I felt like, oh my God,
professional.
Did I just do this all wrong? And this person came in, just like you, calm as a cucumber, started writing things down high, asking the right questions, some of the questions I had asked, but it was pretty amazing to see that happen. And I was soaking it in until they made me go, work the stop sign and stop traffic.
They made you do that?
Well, that's what happens. That's kind of my,
Sure.
You just want to make sure I was holding back traffic, right?
Yeah.
So and I'd parked my car in the road so the traffic couldn't get past anyway, but.
It's just amazing. Maybe I live too much like a hermit because I'm a workaholic, but.
Whatever. How'd you get this movie together while you had your day job too?
Yeah, but there's a sense of community that I sort of admire when I hear this. I'm like, purpose in life trumps many, many things. If there's a reason for you to be here, there's you're valued, and doing something like that for the community just is amazing.
But I don't know that you have to be a volunteer firefighter to do that kind of stuff for the community. I hear so many amazing stories about what neighbors do for neighbors. Yeah. Probably more now than I used to, because I'm paying a little bit more attention to the positive than the negative. Yeah. And I'm always inspired by, just stopping and talking to a person in the canyon and learning a little bit about them. Yeah. I get a good intro because I am standing in front of the firehouse. But it's pretty amazing. People are pretty amazing, and people are more amazing than they give themselves credit for.
Absolutely.
Simple things, simple statements you make can change somebody's. Just giving somebody a smile can change their day when they're having a bad day. And I think that we sometimes forget how impactful we are.
Yeah.
I might not know an individual, but I just might be in the store and give them a smile or help them load something up to their car or whatever. And that might have changed their day or their opinion of people forever.
Yeah.
And you just don't know that. And you're never going to hear about it. And I think that's kind of that's the special thing about some of these things is like a lot of people stop and help other people. Yeah. And then move on, right? Like you called 911, you don't know this person's name that you called 911 for, but you may have saved that person's life. Yeah. But you're just gonna go on and do your thing, right? Yeah. Like, I'll tell that story later, that'll be pretty neat. But like to that person that you helped, that was a defining moment in their life. Yeah. They don't know your name, but some dude stopped and called 911 for me when they could have finished up their hike, right? Yeah. Or walked past because they thought something else was going on. And I just think that that's big.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to focus on that, right? Yeah. I haven't always been that way.
This shines a new light on it, right? You start being a volunteer fire department person.
Yeah.
I can only imagine that it just kind of it takes the veil off of many perspectives you may have had. Not that, we all move through the world and deal with our things that we're supposed to deal with. And then there's kind of you have this opening up of this whole other thing that's going on that's been there the whole time. You didn't even know about it.
Very true. Like I've volunteered for things in my life, but I've always wanted to do something like where I could volunteer for something, but I've never found something that I was willing to commit to.
Yeah.
Right. I show up once to the soup kitchen, whoop-de-doo, but that's, people do that every Christmas and that's pretty big, right? Yeah. Like I just think that finding the time to do it once a year, if everybody, one day is all it takes to change somebody's life. 1 minute is all it takes to change somebody's life. You don't have to do it all the time. Yeah. You can do it in a moment.
Yeah.
And that moment could be yours, right? And we see that a lot. It gets lost in the shuffle sometimes of all the other things that seem bigger and more impactful.
Yeah. I stumbled across this guy's book. He's a Jungian psychiatrist, actually.
Okay.
And he wrote a book, and the title of the book, I didn't make it all the way through the book because the title really hits the nail on the head. And the title is Finding Meaning in the Second Half of Life. And this is what the book is about. The book is most people, especially men, but women too, most people spend the first half of their life trying to achieve something.
Yeah.
And then they spend the second half of their life trying to find meaning.
Yeah.
And it brings a whole different perspective of midlife crisis. I think maybe there was even a line in the book that was there actually should be a midlife crisis. There should be a moment in the middle of your life when you go, what am I doing?
Yeah.
Why is this really important?
Yeah.
What am I doing? And then there's a transformation of I want to find meaning in life. And this idea of helping other people out and being there. I remember looking at JK, who gave me his house to shoot this movie. That's where Derek lived. I looked at him one time and I was like, because we're straight up, from our generation. I won't even get into that, but we grew up in grunge era. Anyways, I looked at him one time and I was like, if we lived in not such an urban area, or we lived a while back, let's go back in time a little bit, where we would be right now is we would be people who would be mentoring younger people. And they wouldn't be the only people getting a benefit from it.
Right.
We'd probably be getting a bigger benefit than they are.
You do when you help people. I think that's...
And in a way, me and Jake are sort of missing that right now because we live in a modern society. We haven't found, not that you can get engaged, but I can't say I'm engaged in that too much.
Yeah.
And there's a meaning in life might have a lot to do with your ability to shape for the better someone else's life. There's a lot of meaning in that.
Yeah, there is. I mean, I don't know that I don't have kids, so I don't have that. Don't know that I miss that because I get to do a lot of the things that I want to do. But I think when you want to make sure the time that you're spending is valuable, right? Yeah. I think as I've gotten older, I want to make sure that I'm doing something. It's not that I have to check a box every day and get something done. It's more that I want to make sure if I'm doing something, it means something, right? Yeah. It doesn't have to be helping people. It just means something to me. And I think as I get older, I had that too, right? Like where I was working for a company, I was doing pretty well. I was making pretty good money. Probably could have moved up in that company, but things just stopped working out. All of a sudden, I got moved to a different department and then eventually phased out where they did a reduction in force and decided you're gone. And it was a real, again, having a support like my wife, she's just amazing, right? And when that happened to me, she had just gotten her new gig. I was like, okay, well, you're going to have to pay the bills for a little bit. I got a contract job, but that didn't work for me. I'm not a good contractor. I need to be there and do stuff. I wound up giving up and working as a ski lift op and trying to figure out what I was going to do next. And
taking a moment, even if it's a year, in your life to reset.
There's nothing more humbling than standing at the bottom of the lift and being told how stupid you are or how useless you are every day when you're explaining to a person, that pass is not yours. That's actually a crime, right? Like where you're it's not a crime it's not a crime against humanity, but it's illegal to use somebody else's pass. But people can justify that kind of thing, right? And then they make you feel like the bad person, like, oh, well, you're just a greedy son of a gun. It's like, well, I get like $15 an hour to be here. I think the way I'm looking at your skis, you could have afforded your own pass. And it's very humbling to sit there and just be like treated like dirt all day long. And it opened my eyes to things. And it actually made me want to do things more, right? Like less executive and company, more like I want to do stuff. I want to be a digital guy, right? Like I want to actually type on the keyboard and be the monkey pushing the button.
Well, dude, once again, there's all these things that happen. As you get older, you start collecting these experiences. And these experiences are like, you can only know until you know.
That's true.
You have to be in those shoes to really understand.
I think so.
Not that you and I have mastered life or whatever, but similarly, I had an experience where, I was doing high-end residential architecture in Chicago. And I was, the person walking into these ridiculous houses, 1%er houses.
Yeah.
And, when the economy went south and I found myself eventually, as I washed up on the shore working for that company that ultimately got me into video, by the way. But anyways, working retail. And one day specifically, I remember this family who I was working on their house doing residential architecture. She now comes in with her kids and I'm helping them pick out games and then wrapping them up for Christmas, like doing our little packaging thing. And it was very humbling. Very humbling.
Yeah.
Like ridiculously humbling. And then I found out, because I sucked at doing the ribbons and all this stuff and like making it look like your presents. You just place it under your tree. You don't have to do anything because you're 1%.
Yeah.
You just put it under your tree. I found out that she was kind of pissed that I was taking so long. And I didn't know what I was doing and I was terrible at it and it was taking a second. But come on.
Yeah.
You getting upset at me now?
It's amazing.
Could you imagine? Like the role reversal?
Yeah, and if they had known you or where you came from and how you got there too, I don't think people would treat people that way, right? Like if you're just looking at me like a guy standing at the bottom of the lift because I'm a dirtbag skier, it's like, well, that's not necessarily the case. I'm doing this because, trying to figure out my next role. I got a free ski pass to be up here.
You have no idea who I am.
I'm going to ski every day. Yeah, and you don't want to say that to somebody, but like, as somebody's yelling at you like that while their kid is standing there because you both have stolen passes or passes that aren't yours. That's a little extreme, but I remember distinctly like, well, like if this is how you're going to raise your kid where it's okay to break the law, like I'm not here to police you. I'm not here to tell you that's right or wrong. What I am here to tell you is you can't ski today. And it's just interesting, and it's okay. It's okay, but it's not okay. Do you know what I mean? It's like, look, I get it. Something's going on in their life too, where they're doing this. I don't know why they made that decision in the first place. I don't think it was screw you, rich guys. I think it was more like, oh, let's see if we can get a day in and have fun as a family, right? And now I'm going to ruin that. And so there's a lot of things. It's kind of like, putting out somebody's campfire. It's like, I get it. Like I've had campfires too that I probably shouldn't have had. I'm going to come up and tell you to put it out. You can either be nice or mean to me.
Did you hear about the guy who started the fire from cremating his dog?
Yeah. So stuff like that. A lot of fires start through a camp.
Simple,
legitimate things. Like I've heard stories that some of the biggest fires were started by firefighters. There was
New Mexico.
In New Mexico, there was one in the Buffalo Creek area. It was called Hayman Fire, where somebody was burning a love note and it wound up getting out of control. And this person happened to be a firefighter. Anybody can make a mistake. And I think that you can't judge people on that moment. That moment is their moment. Something's going on. We all have things going on in our lives, and you have to respect individuals and what they're going through at the same time. Not everybody can be. I haven't figured it out. I don't think anybody's figured it out. I think some people fake it, but not everybody's figured it out.
Yeah. Switching gears, you're not an actor.
No. But I play one on TV.
Look, man, let's open this up with preview. Speaking of your wonderful wife, Nancy, here's you and Nancy. This is when we came up to shoot. So how do I set the stage for this? You guys have a beautiful piece of property just up 4 Mile Canyon. 4 Mile Canyon.
Yeah.
It's on burn scar area.
Correct.
But it's phenomenal.
Yeah, it's fire mitigated. So
that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And also you and I work together at Night Eyes.
Yes.
Phenomenal company.
Great company.
It's crazy how often I see their products around. People are like, I've never heard of that. And it's kind of like, oh, what's that?
That's one.
They're like, it's
too.
Night Eyes.
Yeah.
Happens all the freaking time.
Yep.
But anyways, we got to know each other well there.
Yeah.
And I have often been like, damn, man, Brian is one of the most interesting people I know because of what we were talking about. You just live a life in which you seem hungry for curiosity. And therefore that puts you in situations that you end up doing a bunch of things.
Yeah. Jack of all trades, kind of master of none.
So anyways, I wrote this part in the movie very much thinking about you and wanting to have you in it to play this character.
But it was based on an April Fool's
that's right.
photo shoot that we had done.
That's right.
Because we were just looking for something for April Fools, right? And
well, typically we don't like
pandemic hit.
When I was doing photography for Night Eyes, it's pretty straightforward. It isn't like we get to do anything too what would feel character driven,
right?
Except for this. We got to do character driven,
and it was a pandemic, and like it had just hit. It was the beginning of it, and you're like, hey, would you mind? And I had a full beard at the time, and I was growing my hair like a hippie, special hippie, I was like, well, can I come in character for this thing? And everybody's like, yeah, give it a go. So I showed up in my, my tank top and my jeans and boots, and there was that abandoned boat parked out there as well.
Yes.
And we just had a good time, and it was just fun because you'd tell me to do stuff to get the picture like point the flashlight and say, "Get out of there!" And it was just a good time. So that was really fun. And then you came back.
With that in mind, I just kind of kept thinking about that person, being like, "Oh, how fun would that be if this person ends up in this story somehow?"
Yeah.
And so, anyways, oh man. So I have a scene. I'm going to play a little bit of this scene.
And I think you had been up to my house doing photo shoots for Night Eyes before this.
Yeah.
Maybe we had taken a couple of pictures. I can't remember if we did something up there or not.
I've done several photo shoots at
Before
your house
this?
at
Okay,
time.
okay.
So I had already known that this was, you know,
Okay.
what the lay of the land was
Okay.
like.
Yeah.
And of course, since we did that crazy shoot, then I was like, I know Brian could handle this character. So anyways, let's watch this and let's chat about it.
What do you think you're doing?
Sleeping?
This is private property.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It says no trespassing.
I'm so sorry.
I'm tired of you vagrants thinking you can plop down wherever you damn well please.
Oh, no, I'm not a vagrant. We're camping.
Why are you in a van then?
Well, actually, it's a Honda Element.
What are you, a smart ass?
Alex, let's go. Let's get off this
Okay,
guy's property.
okay. Oh, God, it won't start.
I suppose you need a jump now.
Okay, so how fun was it to shoot this?
It was fun. It was intimidating, but it was
it?
fun. Yeah, it is because you guys came up. We were kind of setting up. Asa and Wolf and Jennifer were in the like the front lobby practicing their lines. I was like, oh, maybe I should be doing that. And then like, there was a script, but you were like, you don't have to follow the script. And I think that just made it harder for me where it's like, oh, now I'm going to have to kind of come in with something else.
Yeah.
So I was like, I think a lot of the times I was just throwing lines and not waiting for anybody to say anything back. And then you kind of had like a lot of this, you would have a conversation with me like, hey, think about it this way. And it was really cool, but it was really hard because because I'm not an actor, because I look at that and that's just me, right? Like that's just how I would normally be.
Yeah.
So it was tough. It was tough, but it was fun. And it was fun to watch everybody work, and watching people interact and watching them do their lines was really fascinating to me.
So one of the greatest compliments I've gotten, this isn't exactly a compliment, but I love that it happened. I showed this scene to someone early on, some friends, and they watched the scene. I'm just waiting to see what the response is. And the response was, whoa, did you have to wait for a foggy day to do this?
Yeah.
And I was like, this is brilliant in so many ways. Number one, you thought that we intentionally wanted fog and had to wait for a foggy day, which is amazing to understand how it actually happens. And I don't mean this scene, I mean filmmaking in general.
Yeah.
And they're sort of disconnected that. But the thing that I got was like, once I explained to them that no, it was foggy, we put that in the script day of.
Yeah.
Because we couldn't change that.
Right.
The second thing was you never once questioned if this person is a good actor or not.
Huh.
They just took it and they were like, of course, that's how someone acts. That is almost impossible to do.
Huh.
Like, acting is deceivingly difficult.
Yes.
It is so simple, it becomes mind-bendingly difficult to do. When people start acting, they start doing things that they don't do in real life. And as an audience member, you're sitting there looking at this like, you can read bullshit basically in 2 seconds flat. And so one of the hardest things, I remember seeing, this is kind of nerdy, but like there was a master class with, it was just a commercial that I saw, but some famous actor, she walked out on stage and she sat down and took 1 second, a beat not to say anything. And she said, what I just did is the simplest and most difficult thing to do in acting, which is to just be something, a character, a person present without having your mind think about it so much that it starts to cause you to do things that humans don't actually do.
Right.
We don't talk with like, like everything we do in real life is so authentic because how could it not be?
Right.
And then as soon as you're supposed to perform something that happens in real life, it becomes inauthentic.
It's hard to do stuff
Deceivingly difficult.
Yeah, just like jumper cables.
Yeah.
Done that a million times. Well, not a million, but I've done that enough. But it was hard to do it when somebody's filming it.
Yeah.
So
Because then you start thinking,
am I putting these on? Am I going fast enough? Do I and normally you're like, oh, I'm just going to jump the car, right? But instead it's like, oh my gosh, this is on film. Am I going to look like an idiot? Am I getting positive to negative, right? All of those things. And it was, it just becomes, you're questioning everything at the same time. Even as lines are coming out, you're like, am I saying this too loud? Am I being too aggressive to you? You know, and all of those things become difficult to maintain, especially if you've not done it before, right? Like I think in anything, like when you try to make things just so that you know them, right? Just so it's just a habit as opposed to like when you're doing stuff, right? I get up every morning, I take a shower, I do these things. These are just habits that I have. And when it's not that way, it just feels awkward.
Yeah. I was so happy with your performance. At the end of the day, I was like, this is freaking amazing. There's nothing more rewarding as a director than to get a good performance out of someone.
Well, you worked it too.
I was determined. It was like, in this scenario, now I'm as calm as a cucumber. Because that's my expertise, right? Like I see someone pass out on a trail on Sanitas and I panic. In this scenario, no panicking. I know what's going on. I can almost guarantee what you feel like inside.
Yeah.
Let's just work through this. Like this is where I shine.
And there was really acting coaching going on throughout this process, right?
Yeah.
There were times where you just stop and say, wait, just do this. Yeah. And it was it was on film, but I felt like it was a normal conversation instead of acting, right? At that point in time. And that's I think where you were trying to lead me throughout is this is something you would do, right? Jump the car, just comment on it. These goofy people in the vehicle that parked on your land. What would you say? If somebody parked on your private property.
So insanely enough, you were like, look, this actually happens often in the foothills.
It does, yeah.
Which is crazy. You were saying Neighbors is constantly filled, your Neighbors feed is constantly filled with like, oh my God, there's someone who came from nowhere. Yeah. Who knows where, and is now like thinking this is a campground.
Yeah, you see, van life is pull over and camp.
Do you think that was escalated during the 2020s?
Some of it, yeah. Everybody and their brother has a camper van now. So, so they're all over the place and people just pull over and camp. So it happens all the time.
You also came up with the line, Flatlanders. Let me scoot ahead.
I did not. That is common.
Well, yeah, but when you said that, I was like, oh my God, that's freaking great. Let me try to get ahead here. Okay.
She just looks so cool too, in that blanket with the fog behind her. It's amazing.
Yeah, Jennifer in this scene is outstanding. So this is another one of those, like we didn't plan the fog. Yeah, that's
just a cool picture.
We didn't plan the fog. The fog was just there. And we couldn't do anything about it. Now we just had to make it part of the story.
Right.
She actually, the reason why she's wearing that blanket is because she goes, shit, Don, I'm so sorry, but I don't have my coat. The coat that I would have in this scene.
Oh.
And I was like, oh my God. I'm like, what do we do?
Yeah.
And so then this blanket comes out, and it's the blanket that they were using from I won't give too much away, but it's the blanket that they have while they're camping.
Right.
So she ends up wrapping herself in that, and then you get like this fog with her there wrapped in a blanket. Amazing.
It was a good scene.
Accidents are a good thing.
Yeah.
You find ways to pull accidents in, and they end up becoming the authenticity, the authenticness of a story.
I just think this is really cool the way, and how greens are there and the fog. It was it's a gorgeous day.
It was beautiful. Okay. And then we get
Hey!
Go. Just go. Go.
These flatlanders.
Oh my God, I love that phrase. I just love that phrase.
I like it too. We use it a lot in the mountain community.
You said you were on a hike someplace. You saw this like Flatlander sign talking about Flatlanders. Is that the case?
There is. There's a. Now I'm gonna forget the name of it. I think it's like Alpine Tunnel. I think it's called, and it's an old mine. It used to be a train system through. The tunnel kept collapsing on them, so they wound up having to wind up closing it down. But on the other side of the tunnel, there's a marquee with a description of what it was. It's an old mining community. They used to they would turn the train around there, so they had a big turnaround point. And it talks about how they hated Flatlanders up there. I think I took a picture of it and sent it to you so I could convince you to. Yeah,
you did. I forget. I had something like Denverites.
Yeah.
Something.
Which would have worked too, right? Like I think I've heard that as well, but I hear Flatlanders most.
When you were like, you said something like, would you ever consider maybe the word Flatlanders? And I was like, oh my God, that's phenomenal. So there's a lot of truth to this, because when you start getting, the mountains are so different than the Front Range, than the prairie, than like coming from the Midwest. I mean, driving is so much more difficult in the mountains.
Yeah.
Walking and hiking and going places is so much different. Ice.
Yeah, the weather, the animals, there's just a lot of things makes
different.
It keeps you busy.
Flatlanders, and I consider myself a former Flatlander. Flatlanders underestimate how difficult the mountain, like, it just catches you off guard. You just think like, oh, and then you're like, oh, these scenarios are a bit more difficult than.
I think so. I think a lot, the way they make vehicles now, you can drive anywhere, right? So you can buy an off-road vehicle and go up there, but that doesn't mean you can go anywhere, right?
Yeah,
we hear stories all the time of somebody trying to drive over what's really a single-track trail, and they try and get over a 14er, and their car is stuck on the ridge, and somebody has to go up and get that. And it's and that's another volunteer group, right? There's a mountain rescue group that these are just volunteers that have really built out for off-road vehicles, and they'll go up and take you off the side of a peak, and it's amazing. But it happens all the time.
There is a rescue group that I've watched here and there. I've seen like little mini docs on these people that if you are like hiking a 14er and you get trapped up there, they will come oftentimes in a helicopter. Like the one documentary I saw was they come in helicopters, they let someone down. I mean, they're plucking you in a military helicopter off the side of a mountain that you otherwise would most likely perish in a matter of hours a day.
Yeah.
Stay the night up there, you might freeze to death.
And a lot of these people are volunteers as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's a passion, right?
Yeah.
There's just something to it. One, you get to drive your really cool vehicle up there to try and help somebody.
Right.
But it's really, it's dangerous.
It's
really dangerous. And you're not only trying to protect your own life, but you're trying to protect somebody else's. And it's pretty, we get to interface with these guys all the time. They give us classes or training sessions, and it's pretty amazing to watch what people do with their free time to help others, and so that others can enjoy that, right? Because it's not like you don't want people to enjoy. I think the biggest joy is when people come up and appreciate where I live, right?
Yeah.
Oh my God, it's beautiful up here. Oh my gosh, it's like that. That makes me really happy because we should all appreciate this.
Yeah.
We really should, and take a step back and take a breath and really appreciate what's around us, because there's coming down here. I love coming down to the city. It's not where I'd want to live, but there's something valuable about being here and seeing what happens in a crowded space versus a less crowded space.
Isn't Colorado and Denver amazing?
Very lucky to live in Colorado, right? Like the whole, I don't know. I don't want to give up the movie themes and stuff that happens in there, but there's so many times in the movie where I'm like, there'll be a line where it's like, oh my gosh, that just cracks me up, because that's exactly how people are, right? Like where you're gonna go. Like when you say you're going camping, the first question anybody asks you is, in this movie, and that's actually where I go all the time, right? So like when I read that, I was like, oh, that's just brilliant, because that's probably what I'm going to ask somebody too. But Colorado has so much as well. I mean, I was just down in Creed and the Four Corners down there, which is 7 hours drive from
yeah.
here, but we're in the same state and experiencing something pretty amazing.
Yeah.
And then the people before us built, right? They built this in the 1800s, and I'm driving down there in a, a lifted Forerunner that I'm still nervous about it.
And we could say it's Utah, for God's sakes. Everyone says, "Oh, you're going to Utah."
Yeah.
Utah is stunning.
It is,
My God.
And to go from the Rocky Mountains to the desert is just amazing. I mean, taking I-70 all the way through Utah is one of the most beautiful highways. To some people, it's miserable. To me, it's like there's a new photo every second.
I agree. When you get outside of Grand Junction, it's just like flatness.
Yeah.
For miles.
But the colors and the bluffs and the way it's just outrageous. And
it is outrageous.
And it's gorgeous, and it's tough living, right? Like it's the desert. It's out there.
Yeah.
So it's I find it pretty special.
So on your trips to Moab, have you ever found yourself in a dicey situation out there? Moab makes me nervous because of the heights.
Yeah. I've found myself in some dicey situations. I've gotten stuck out there before. I've not had the right vehicle. Like I haven't always had an off-road vehicle, but I've always taken my vehicle off-road. So sometimes, that sand, once it gets wet, turns into like glue. So the mud just cakes up, and eventually you're just not rolling. So there's a lot of times out there, or mountain biking where you get caught in a storm. It doesn't rain a ton out there. It does actually. It's surprisingly there's moisture. That's how things. Yeah. That's how the Colorado River rolls through there. But there's times where I've found myself on a ledge or put my car in a situation it shouldn't have been in, and luckily have gotten out. But my brother's we were out there one time. His whole lift came off of his Bronco. And so we're out there jacking it up and trying to lift it in the sand, trying to just get it to hold so we can get out of there. So there's times, but it's all part of the adventure.
But it is.
If nobody gets hurt, it's all good, right? And I can hike for a long period of time. So like if all goes wrong, I just hike myself out, right? Yeah. And make sure at least I've had water with me and some of those things. So I haven't been in any. A lot of people will get dehydrated, and I've been I did the Kokopelli Trail one year, which starts Grand Junction and ends in Moab, and I rode it with a couple of guys.
What was it? Is this bikes?
Mountain biking.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So it's an amazing mountain bike trail. It goes all the way from Grand Junction basically to Moab.
Whoa.
And it's awesome. So we do it in a couple of days, and we have a support vehicle meeting us in places to set up camp.
Yeah.
But one of the guys we smartly did it in July.
Yeah.
So one of the guys I was riding with got major heat stroke. We had a major problem, had to rush him to the hospital. It was those kind of things. Wow. So like stuff happens.
Yeah.
I've been lucky enough to where things like that haven't happened to me.
Yeah.
But I broke my wrist out there. I've broken bones out there.
I mean, I don't want to make it sound like it's so treacherous and dangerous, but there's a level of a lot of people underestimate like the sort of situations you can get into.
Yeah.
And it's it's not just Colorado or Utah, it's like the whole West. It's like these landscapes are intense.
Yes.
And they are, you've heard of, I was hearing about someone who got basically going down to the Grand Canyon they were taking a path down to and they just basically, no one goes down there, and they underestimated the distance, and they all started kind of suffering from heat exhaustion. Several of them died.
Yeah.
Several of them stayed out there for a long time.
Yeah.
And there's there's another story I heard of people just go missing.
Yeah.
Like they get off the trail, they get lost, they can't, and then
it's very easy to get lost.
It doesn't sound that bad until you're 12 or maybe 20 hours into it.
Yeah.
And you start having I don't know if I can keep walking anymore.
Agreed. And there's no water. It's hard to find food.
Yeah.
There's just not edible plants around or anything. You just kind of, you really gotta plan for those trips. I mean, I don't know that there is a chance where you could over plan for a trip to the desert. It's just smart to have and over time I've learned that, right? I've frozen my rear off. We used to go every Thanksgiving and deep fry a turkey out there, with my buddies. And I remember one night where like I thought it was going to freeze to death. We wound up having to drive to town, and I bought like a bunch of sweaters from the drugstore down there so that I could make it through the night. So I've definitely, not prepared enough, or, I didn't have the budget to buy the equipment that I can buy today.
Yeah.
So I went with what I had, which is, kind of like a lot what these guys did, right? They just, they just went with what they had, and while they weren't unprepared, they weren't necessarily prepared.
Yeah.
And I think that's a common thing when you have a really cool vehicle. I spent $40,000 on this vehicle. It's going to get me anywhere. Well, not anywhere.
Yeah, right. I love this idea of like people moving to Denver from the Midwest, just like we did.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, I'm going into the mountains. And then you go there and you're like totally ill prepared. You have no idea what is what,
Or you see a wild animal and you think, I'm going to take a picture instead of look. Maybe I better back up, that's a bear.
That's right. That's pretty hilarious. So I am going to release this on Thanksgiving Day, and I have been holding on to this bottle of fine Kirkland champagne
Nice.
that you gave me as celebratory for when the movie is released publicly.
Nice.
And I cannot wait. And I also
I hope to have some. Ooh, nice.
I'm also going to smoke this cigar. So Thanksgiving Day, when I release this, these are the treats that will I enjoy.
What do you got here?
That's a
the Romeo and Juliet.
Romeo and Juliet.
I know this one.
The reason why that cigar is special to me is that I met up with my buddy in Portland. I used to play in a band when I was younger. And we've all gone on to live very eclectic lives. And we all got together in Portland this past summer at this beautiful place in Portland called the Kennedy School. And it's an old school from the 1900s that's been converted into a hotel. It has a theater, like the gymnasium, the auditorium has been turned into an actual movie theater.
Oh, nice.
People from the public can come to. The principal's office has been turned into a little tiny, you could probably fit 10 people in their max bar. It's a little bar inside the school.
Nice.
They got a restaurant. It's so cool. And I bought this cigar there. I bought 2 of them because everyone who says if you're going to get a cigar, here's what you do. You get 2, smoke 1, save 1.
Yeah, makes sense.
And so I was like, so between this cigar and this bottle of champagne that you gave me, I'm like, these 2 things are kind of special to me.
This is from my dad's wedding.
From your dad's wedding. I was at your house and you said, I gotta offload this stuff. Like someone has to come take all the booze that we purchased.
I didn't realize, 85-year-olds didn't drink a lot. So I may have over purchased for that.
Yeah, so this is for your dad's 85th.
I think he
was
was
85 or 84.
I think he might have been like 88 or 89 actually.
And he's getting married.
And he got married, yeah.
You were the guy who ended up having to buy all the alcohol.
I just kind of, yeah. We had to make sure that they had a good reception.
Yeah, bingo.
Bingo.
So, yeah. So you came home with all of this and you were like, dude, you got to take a bottle of champagne.
Yeah, I bought a couple bottles of like name brand ones. Not that this isn't a name brand.
Kirkland's supposed to be pretty good.
But it turns out, and I bought a bunch of this for the champagne toast.
Yes.
And after drinking the name brand one and drinking this one, it turned out I like this one a little bit better. Because it's sweet. It's a nice taste in. I don't know what they're white labeling here, but it's not a bad champagne.
When you handed this to me, I even said at the time, I was like, I'm going to save this for a special occasion. And this whole project, by the time Thanksgiving has come around, it would have been over 2.5 years, almost 3 years.
Wow.
Of nonstop work.
Yeah, I remember the conversations. It was nonstop for you.
So much work.
Yeah, any free time you had, you were working on this, which was...
The thing now is like the movie's completed.
Yeah.
But like, what good is a movie if you can't have marketing for it? And it isn't like someone's coming to me saying, oh, we're going to market this movie for you. That's just not how movie making works.
Yeah.
So now I have to do so that's where the efforts has been going.
Now the hard part again.
I cannot wait to crack this open.
And leave it to a guy that looks like that to give you a bottle of Kirkland, right? Here, it's Kirkland.
But do you know how many people have told me Kirkland actually is really good product? Like,
That's what I hear too, yeah.
Apparently their whiskey's like...
I've heard that as well. And I will be trying it soon. They don't sell that at my local Costco, so I have to take a trip down south.
I cannot wait to crack this.
That's fun.
But it's
I hope
again,
to sip some with you.
oh, dude, I would have,
I'm hoping we're having a little celebration that time, you know.
dude, I'm totally down for that.
I'm around Thanksgiving.
All right.
I'm not going to Moab.
You're not going to Moab this year.
Not this year. Well,
All right.
I might be going to the Maze late after Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Which is in Canyonlands.
You know, their names for those trails are so maniacal.
Yeah.
Maze, Devil.
Well, the Maze is in Canyonlands, and it's on the other side of the canyon where you go in, and they don't allow off-road vehicles in there. You have to have a licensed vehicle to drive in, but it goes into this area that's just, it's got ruins, it's got pictures, it's very it's just
Amazing.
it's hard to explain. It's very amazing.
Wow. That's great. Dude, we've covered a lot.
Okay.
I got one. Actually, I know this is a kind of a generic question. Let me ask you this.
All right.
If you had to give advice to a young person that you may have been in your 20s, what would the advice be?
Be patient.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I just wanted things to come faster.
Yeah,
when
yeah.
I was younger, I wanted things to happen faster.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to. Life is long. I mean, things can happen, so I don't want to be just so but you have time to do things, and it doesn't always have to happen. You don't want to peak too early. You don't want your high school days to be your best days, right? Because you got a long time to live off of that, right? Yeah. So, be patient.
Yeah, that's great advice.
Yeah, I'm still listening to it.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. That's life, man.
Yeah.
You never really grow up. You just move into a new phase with all the experience. You just keep taking it with you.
I remember saying, my dad, I had asked him something like, when he had gotten older, it might have been one of his birthdays or something like that, and I had said something like, it must be tough to see this. And he's like, son, I'm still looking through the eyes of the 18-year-old.
Yeah.
You still have that.
Yeah.
No matter how old you get.
Yeah.
And it's you want to maintain that.
I continue to be, it's to sound like self-boasting here, but I am wickedly optimistic about the future usually. My general status is that I cannot wait to jump into a new chapter.
I agree. I'm not going to be a curmudgeon. The kids should be. I like to see what young people are doing right now. I like them challenging things that became the norm.
Yeah.
I'm inspired by that. I think that we've got a lot
Yeah.
of, I'm not going to look at the negative. I'm going to look at the positive of this, and that people are going to start to do things because it's the way things evolved, right?
Yeah.
Not because we've always done it that way. I think that's my least favorite thing to hear from somebody is, well, this is just the way I've always done it.
Yeah.
It's like, well, is there a better way? Ask Uber or Lyft, right? When we used to have to sit around and wait for a taxi.
Yeah.
There's a commercial joke that's
God.
no, we're going to have somebody roll up in their own car and pick you up, that's not a licensed taxi driver. It's like, well, that's not going to work. It's like, oh my gosh, how amazing is it that I can just hit my app and somebody's going to come pick me up. And that's small potatoes compared to what these kids are doing today.
Yeah.
And I constantly hear about all the things that they're doing, and I'm really inspired by it as well.
Big time. We had stunningly, so it's kind of amazing. We had intern. I got to know a few interns that we had at work over the summer, and I really enjoyed being around them. And all of them, sort of had I felt like we had quite a solid connection. I just really gravitated towards younger people and their perspectives. Mm-hmm. And the Fourth Turning book that I'm into, that generational demographer guy, Neil Howe, freaking stuff is phenomenal. Basically, he's you have every other generation basically flip-flops. So like millennials are the like the flip side of boomers. Gen X is the flip side of, or Gen Z is the flip side of Gen X. And so these generations have a lot in common. And I'm like looking at, you know, the generation that I've come from and looking at these Gen Z youngsters and going, we have a ton in common, too, honestly. And it's really fascinating to see that, to have that moment of like, you know, you realization. Oh, God, I don't want to get off on a tangent here, but I remember my entire young adult life, I was surrounded only by Gen X and boomers and silent. Because I was working in architecture, right? Those were all the people I was working with. I wasn't working, no one was younger than I was. I was the youngest person. And then the Great Recession happened, and all of a sudden I found myself kind of out of a career and searching for a career, which is what got me into doing video for this company in Chicago. And that company was filled with nothing but millennials.
Yeah.
And I remember just being like, who are these people?
Yeah.
They don't even make sense to me. Like, they are nothing like these people I've been around with. It was just so bizarre. It wasn't just the work. It wasn't just that company. It was also, I started doing improv and acting.
Okay.
And again, it was all millennials. Like, I was an older-ish person compared to everyone who was kind of thriving in that at that time. And for the first time ever, I'm seeing millennials. I never even made this connection. For the first time ever, I'm watching millennials go, who are these people? And I'm like, yes, yes. You finally get to experience what I experienced with you.
Yeah.
Now you get to experience it. You're going, who are these people?
Yeah.
And I'm just like...
And you can't be scared of it, though. Like, I think a lot of people are just scared of the change, and you know, change is inevitable. I mean, we're not wearing suits everywhere, right? Like, we get to dress casual today. Like, when everybody before, you know, the generation before me was like, tuck in your shirt and, you know, do the work, put your head down. You know,
show up every single day.
Yeah, and like, you know, the notion of a remote worker would never have been, but you know, technology and the pandemic changed some of that. But it was probably time.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, like you can be productive anywhere. You don't have to have somebody standing behind you, looking over your shoulder, making sure that you show up. As a matter of fact, I can be non-productive anywhere as well. Bingo. Right? Like, I've walked in on executives playing solitaire all day. Not at my current place.
Of course not.
But like at other places I've been, it's like, well, how's that solitaire game going? You know, like, what are you doing here? Why don't you just go home or like go do this?
Why don't you go work remote?
Yeah, at least then I don't have to see this and be mad at you for not working. So yeah, I think that I love the gravitation to change. I think it's rough. Because we're learning about it at the same time we're doing it, which is how things change. Yeah. And it'll get better and better over time. And we get to be a part of that, right? Like, we come from a time when we didn't have a PC. I saw a meme today is like, you know why I'm so angry, or Gen Xers are, is because I used to have everything on tape. And then it was on vinyl. Then I was told to move it to a cassette tape. Then I had to go to a CD. Now I'm on it. Then I had to move to an MP3, and now I have to pay for the streaming. You know, like all of those things. It's like, well, why wouldn't I be angry? All the music I've bought and learned over time, I just get it free here.
And to buy it 4 times over.
$3.99 a month, so I can listen to the music that I would have bought and owned. And it's like, you know, and I know people collect vinyl and stuff, but those changes, you know, Betamax, that was the new thing for video. It's like I remember when we had our first video camera, you carried the suitcase with the video camera on your shoulder, you know.
That's right.
What was out of time?
What was the oh my God, I can't remember. Yeah, I remember when VHS started becoming a thing. Oh, well, Beta was before VHS, right?
VHS was first, and then Beta was going to take it over.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
But it was like every time something like this comes out, it's like, start your collection.
Yeah, and then there was some sort of CD thing that it was a big... Yeah, it went from tape to like a CD thing, then back to tape. And then that all washed.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, but
Brian,
you know, we're lucky.
Thank you so much for sitting down.
Thanks, Don. Man, thanks for all this. This is fun.
Yeah, this is fun, right?
Yeah.
Get to explore life, man.
You know, you get deep, you know, it's awesome. Life's pretty good.